So let's jump back into After Effects and rebuild my sample project. So the foundation of this entire effect, and my method in general for simulating light in After Effects, is based on using 32 bits per channel color. And I'm quickly going to try and demonstrate to you what exactly 32 bits per channel is. By default, After Effects compositions are set to 8 bits per channel, and you can see that right down here. What that means is that for all of the color generation, the depth of the color is set to 8 bits. So in the case of this white ball, the fill color is pure white, which is made up of red, green, and blue values. Since it's pure white, all 3 color channels are set to the max of 255. If I were to bring this all the way down to black, the values would go down to 0. If I bring this all the way up to the top right corner, blue and green are still at 0, but red is now at the max of 255. That's because this is pure red. And as I change the hue, you can see that the color values are changing. So any color you make inside of 8 bits per channel is just a combination of red, green, and blue values between 0 and 255. So if I wanted to make a blue light, I wouldn't go to pure blue like this, because that doesn't look very bright. So I would probably shift this over so it would be a brighter version of the blue, and then maybe add a glow on top of it and add some more effects so that it looks like it's a little bit brighter. Now if we switch our color depth from 8 bits per channel to 32-bit, our colors are going to behave a little bit differently. Now inside of After Effects, there's a couple different ways of changing your color depth. One is clicking on this number right here, and then coming to the depth menu item inside this window, and clicking on 32 bits per channel, and then pressing OK. Another way you could do it is holding Option or Alt on a PC, and clicking on this button, and that switches to 16 bits per channel, and then one more time will bring you to 32 bits per channel. So that's really the quickest way to switch. Option or Alt, and then click on the numbers. Now something very important to take note of is that this is a project-wide setting, not specific to a single composition. So if you're working in a project file that has multiple compositions and you switch the color depth, it's going to affect everything in that project. The reason that's important is because the color depth affects how all of your colors behave and work together. Also, some effects are only compatible with 8-bit. If I open up the color correction tab, you'll see that on the left side of all of these effects, there's a little icon with a number inside of it. So Curves, for instance, has 32 in it. That means it's compatible with 32-bit. Colorama is compatible with 16-bit, but Color Link is only compatible with 8-bit. So if I were to apply this to this circle, and look over here in the effects palette, you see this little warning icon. That icon is telling you that this effect is not compatible with the current color depth, and it's probably not going to behave the way that you're expecting it to. Now sometimes this isn't an issue, and sometimes it is, but we shouldn't have to worry about that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this effect, and change the color of this layer again. If I put it at pure white, you'll notice that now instead of having a max value of 255, each color channel has a max value of 1, and the minimum value is 0. So any color is a range between 0 and 1. But if I were to make this pure red again, then I move this window out of the way so we can see the ball. If I click and drag on the 1, you can see that I can actually increase it past a value of 1. And if I were to grab this green and increase that as well, that's going past a value of 1. And maybe I'll grab the blue and increase that as well. So even though we're seeing a pure white because R, G, and B are all set to values over 1, you can see that there's color data inside of this window. Now why is that? If I hit OK, all we see is pure white. But if I were to grab this fast blur and apply it to my layer, and then blur this out a little bit, you can see this is actually kind of producing a glow. What would normally be pure white is actually getting this yellow tint to it. And on the inside, we're kind of getting this fall off, that's making this look like it's a bright light. If I go back into the color, and I take out some of the green, you can see that the hue is shifting to being more orange, and the color is updating to be like that as well. If I increase the red, we get an even more intense glow. And the higher you crank up these numbers, the brighter your light source appears. If I turn this off and back on, you can see how much of a difference that made. And if I switched back to 8-bit depth, you can see that now we just have the blurred out circle. If we go back into 32-bit, our glow is back. This is what makes 32-bit color depth so powerful. Another really cool thing is that if I duplicate this ball and move it over, you can see that as I'm moving this, the two objects are kind of warping into each other. Switching back to 8 bits, you can see that that kind of an interaction doesn't really happen between these two objects. But because these are light values that are kind of blooming out from the source, as they get closer together, they blend together. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an understanding of what 32-bit depth is.